A very good morning. We are going to start with another type of factors in your syllabus, that is the biotic factors, or it's mentioned as biota. Okay, so here we are going to define the interactions amongst living organisms, like how plants they are affecting animals, or plants are affecting environment, or plants are affecting other plants. So we'll have, or the relationship of microbes with plants. So we will have different subheadings in order to explain biotic interactions. So firstly, what are biotic factors? Organisms, you all know, they live in a society. Any kind of the organism, I'm not only talking about the human beings, but any organism, when we are giving here the reference of plants, or there may be any kind of the small insect communities, so they are living in a society where they are interacting with each other. Now they develop relationships. Why they interact? That is for food, for shelter, for reproduction. And all these interactions, they are going to regulate their population density. So these factors or these interactions, they constitute biotic factors. Okay, so means number of organisms, when they are dwelling at a particular place, they are interacting amongst themselves for food, shelter, reproduction and other requirements. And all these requirements, they are going to finally decide what will be the population density of a species. So all these interactions, they are going to define the size of population. So that's why they all constitute biotic factors. Now, what kind of relationships we have in the society? They were given different names under different periods or eras. So the very important term, the one which is used to explain all kind of the interactions, all type of the relationships amongst organisms, is symbiosis. Now, this term was given by D. Berry, and he said that for any kind of the relationship amongst organisms, we can use this term symbiosis. Okay, no other meaning was there. He didn't apply to a kind of the positive interaction or a negative interaction, because we may have both. But he simply said that if there is an interaction, we'll use the word symbiosis. Then later on, McDougall, he used this term symbiosis typically to designate the mutually beneficial relationships. Means those which are beneficial on both parts, means plus relationship. So it is not that any relationship can be called symbiosis, but if it is the organisms who are in relationship, they are benefiting each other, there is a mutual benefit, then we will call it symbiosis. And he used another term for this called mutualism. Now other terms which are used to define all these interactions, they are coaction, means it may be plus plus, plus minus, or this is also called consortium. Now biotic factors, they have been categorized by Odum into positive interactions and negative interactions. Positive interactions, as the name suggests, it clearly means that one of the species is getting benefited. That is positive. Okay, so one interacting species helps the other either way. It may be one way, it may be on reciprocal basis. So it may be obligatory or non-obligatory. So positive means it should be either an association of plus plus, it can be plus 0, it can be plus minus. Though this category is considered under negative interactions, because here the negative factor is also involved. So broadly we say that any one of the species is getting benefited and the other species may get benefit, or it's a total neutral interaction for that. So in this we will cover these categories: commensalism, protocooperation and mutualism. Now second category according to Odum is negative interactions. Negative means here at least one species is getting harmed. So it may be a kind of, I told you this is counted in negative, so it is a plus minus. It may be a minus minus, that both they are harmed, and it may be a kind of the interaction in which one is negative and other remains unaffected, neutral. So one interacting species is harmed and the other may be harmed, that may be benefited, that may remain neutral. So it may be benefited, it may remain neutral, or it may also be harmed. Now, example for this is competition, predation, parasitism, antibiosis, and amensalism. Antibiosis and amensalism is one and the same thing. We will study this in detail. Okay, now before going into the interactions directly, first we will see how the plants they interact with the environment. Okay, then we'll discuss how they are interacting with other plant species. So what are their interactions with environment? Plants, they have made a physical environment congenial for human and animal living. We all know if there are plants, that's why we are able to live on this planet. It is not that they are providing food. That is a separate aspect, but otherwise also the plants, they are making the environmental conditions quite benign for us. So we can say, for example, we have an extreme case of life in deserts where we observe very few plant species or the other insect or animal species growing in that area, and during daytime that complete scene stands still. Why it is stand still? Because very less plant population is there, because of which whole of the area is exposed to solar radiation, temperature is very high, and during that period the activity of other organisms, that is highly reduced. So see the impact of plants, because plants are missing there. But as you observe in the plains, when you compare it with that, during daytime we have a very comfortable environment because of plants surrounding us. So that's why the life or the hustle bustle can be easily observed in the plains. Then second is the absence of plants that affects the quality of environment in an area to make it inhabitable. So if in a particular area, like I told you in the deserts, when plants are not there, plants are missing, so the environment will become inhabitable. We will study that, how that happens, how the physical conditions they are getting affected. A typical case study has been seen with relevance to the Shivalik Himalayas. Shivalik Himalayas, they are continuously under the threat of deforestation, and because of that, and because human inhabitation is encroaching deep in that area, because of which ultimately the conditions in the area of that particularly around the Punjab and Haryana, they are becoming miserable. Okay, the environment changes, they are very unpredictable, and especially the people who are living in the vicinity, they are facing a lot of problems. So that is why we say that plants, they are really important in order to maintain that balance of environment. So what are the effects of plants on physical environment? First, we have already studied soil formation. Soil, we all know, it is a weathered rock material which is having organic material in it, abundant organic and inorganic material in it. So if we say soil without organic material, means there is no humus, then it will become sterile. It will be highly unstable. It will be too brittle and or too hard. Right? Because organic component is important for its water holding capacity, for its aeration, for its enrichment. So that's why, and from where that organic material is coming, it is being provided by plants. The fallen leaves or the litter, that is going to contribute to the humus after degradation. We have already studied this in detail. So organic component is really important. So soil formation without organic component is going to be of no use, because there won't be any nutrient, any aeration, any water holding capacity of that soil. Then weathering of rocks for the formation of soil is also assisted by plants. We all know the very first step when the weathering of rock is to take place, and that is also usually under the biological control, where very small plants, they start appearing earlier, and because of the hydration of their roots, slowly the crevices develop on the rocks, and ultimately they are going to be broken into the pieces, and then slowly and gradually the soil will be developed. So weathering is also for which the plants are required. Then comes soil protection. Now the upper layer of the soil, they are exposed to the action of wind and water, we all know, and if there is no plant cover, the soil particles will ultimately, because of the blasting action of the raindrops, cutting action of the running water, or the abrasive action of the high speed wind, ultimately the top layers of the soil, they will start getting eroded. The phenomena you all know is called soil erosion. so that soil will become very loose, and that will be carried away with the water or with the wind. So soil erosion, not only soil erosion, but also it is going to invite a serious trouble related to our water bodies. How? Because we have seen that when the soil is going to settle along the banks of the water reservoirs, it will result in silting of those areas. Silting means ultimately it will be deposited in the river beds, and because of that, those beds, they will become shallow, and slowly and gradually the areas, they will totally lose their water, and because of the silting there will be lot of obstructions in their path, and that stream or river will have to change its course. It happens over time. So you can see here in the first one we have shown the site where severe soil erosion has taken place. See, then the second one, when we observe lot of silting of the riverbeds. So these are all the tributaries of the river over a large area, and you can see here the areas, because of the silting, they are under the drought conditions, and very fine tributaries are only left for the river course. So this happens that ultimately that soil particles, because they are very fine particles being carried to that area, they will get deposited in the water bodies and will result in silting of that area. Now what plants do in this aspect? So they will serve as windbreaks. So ultimately the velocity of the storms and gales, that will be reduced. Now they are also effective means against electrical storms. Whenever there is thundering, they are really important. They serve as a kind of blanket in that area. The growth of plants on the slope of hills is also good, because it will reduce the speed of running water, and you all know because of the slopes the water is moving at a very high velocity from that area. So if in between the plants are there, the trees are there, then ultimately the velocity will get reduced and the water will be absorbed by the soil. The absorbed water will slowly percolate inside the soil, and then it will be available in the form of permanent streams or springs. Third effect is temperature. By the shading effect of the plants, they don't allow soil to get heated up appreciably during daytime. So during daytime we have seen that the solar radiation is very high, and because of that the temperature shoots up very fast. By the noon time we have the highest temperature recorded of the day. So ultimately, and land, it gets heated up faster as compared to water. You all know, you must have studied in your geography classes. So it means during the daytime the heat is going to be easily absorbed by the land. Now in order to protect the land from this effect, they are providing shading effect, so that overall temperature remains lesser. Then at night they will provide the blanket effect. How? Because at night similarly the land loses heat faster. So what will happen, that it will slowly, the temperature is going to drop, but because of the plants present around, that will drop gradually. So it will not be a fast change. Then the effect of seasons is minimized by the plant cover. Then they maintain normal atmospheric moisture, humidity around us. How? Because we know they are having a phenomena called transpiration, because of which continuously from their body the water is getting transpired in the form of vapors in the environment, which is going to make our air humid, wet. So that will also prevent drastic fluctuations in the atmospheric temperatures. Now fourth is moisture. This is the same one. The plants, they will lose large quantities of water in the form of transpiration. That will make the area humid, and on condensation, after condensation, you all know, is a cloud formation, and after that precipitation, so that water will fall in the form of dew or local rain, which is also a requirement of life. Fifth is absorption of pollutants. Now, it has been seen over a course of time that plants, they are good absorbers of certain atmospheric pollutants, harmful gases like nitrogen oxides, okay, and like carbon dioxide, you all know, and methane. So these gases, even the pollutants like the particulate matter, etc., so they can be easily absorbed or retained on the surface of plants. Some of the examples are really good, which are working good in the township areas. In certain cities, they have been experimented in abroad, like grapevine, apple, apricot, pine, oak, balsam, poplar. So this is balsam, and this is poplar. Okay, poplar is just like people, Ficus religiosa, but its canopy is quite thin as compared to people, and the leaves, they are slightly pointed, and you can see here it has got less branching as compared to that plant, but it is fast growing. Balsam is the one that we have studied for ascent of sap. So this is a plant in which the veins and the stem, etc., they are quite light in color, so they can easily take up the color of stain, as we studied for the eosine dye. And this plant, this is a very simple growing plant. It doesn't need any kind of the special cultivation practices, but it has proved itself as a very good absorbent for harmful gases and particulate matter. So this is also being practiced, this is also being cultivated around the homes or around the lawn areas for absorption of pollutants. Next is layering and stratification. Now, we all know when plants are growing in a particular area, they develop themselves along different strata, along different layers. We have few plants which are light loving plants called heliophytes, so they are ousted from that area, means they are compelled to move out of that area and to grow as a top canopy. Similarly, there are plants which are shade loving plants. They don't need much of the solar energy, so they will form the lower strata of that forest community. So this is how they are going to arrange themselves, so in order to avoid the competition and receive optimum solar intensity for their life processes. Okay, so how this is now related to the environment? This is related why? Because when they are developing different canopies, the environment under that tree is totally different from the one which is above the tree. So they are going to develop microclimates where the temperature, moisture, shade, they will be varied as compared to the area above those trees or the areas which are devoid of that plant community. So this is how they are going to affect the local environment. So they allow the growth of different type of plants which form different horizons, like tall trees. This is a stratification. Small trees, shrubs, tall herbs, and ground flora. So how this is going to help? This is going to create the micro environments in that area depending upon the requirements. Then succession. Succession means the onset of the development of a particular community in an area, which is followed by development of number of other communities, and finally the establishment of a climax community. So that area gets developed completely. Now in this case, we have seen that when we have a newly colonized area, the plants, they are going to come there. Usually these are the plants which are very small, like lichens, like bryophytes, very small growing plants, and they are going to change that area, which is probably that may be a barren area, it may be a rock surface. So it is going to change that area, and slowly, gradually, so that the moisture content in the soil level starts increasing in that. But the moment its part is finished, it will make the conditions hostile for its own species. It will make it hostile so that a new group of plants invade the area. Again, that will make certain changes in that area and will make the conditions hostile, and so on. This will go on. Ultimately, a permanent change will take place. We have a more stable community developed in the area, which will persist there as a climax vegetation or climax community. Okay, so that will be the stable one. It is not going to change further. So this is how the succession takes place in an area, and totally the outlook of that land is changed. A barren area may develop into a forest community, and who does that? Plants. Plants, they are going to do that. So you must have started this. We have annual plants, the annual plants, then perennial plants and grasses, then shrubs they develop. We have softwood trees and the hardwood trees. So this is a final community that is going to develop in that area and will persist till there are no harsh environmental changes or natural calamity. Okay, so that's all for the effect of plants on environment. In the next lecture, we'll start with the basic plant interactions, the positive and the negative one. Thank you.